So it's kind of a rough start to the morning today, but I'm getting going finally. Made it down to the copper infusion I have today. And let me see. This is my fancy setup in here. So you can see that it's not much really, but typical infusion center style. And here in a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you all about what it is like to Here in a few minutes, I'll talk to you all about what it's like to get a copper infusion and why one might be necessary. Hello, I don't know why I said hello. It's because I'm recording this part of the video on a different day. The copper infusion was actually almost a week ago now for me. But anyway, I wanted to tell you why it might be necessary, which is coming up in just a minute, but also what it's like to have a copper infusion. Basically, I go to an infusion center. If you've ever had IVIG or any other infusion, it's very similar to that. I go in, they ask me a bunch of questions about medical history, then they take any blood if they need to, which at a copper infusion, they usually do labs like a CMP and a CBC, an iron panel, a ferritin test, and a copper serum test, generally every time that I go. Sometimes other testing too. Then a nurse will come in and insert an IV, then they'll run a small amount of saline for a little while, and not anywhere like what they would give you for IVIG, just a very small amount, while they're getting the copper mixture ready to put in, and that takes maybe 30 minutes or something. And then the actual copper infusing into you takes about 4 hours. Of course, that can vary depending on some things, but it's not like it can cause the same side effects that IVIG can cause in terms of being run in too fast. Like it's not going to give you aseptic meningitis or anything like that. The worst thing that's happened to me with a copper infusion is I've had a gigantic bruise on my arm before, and the metal, like my veins have been really irritated by it running in. And that's been happening more and more. I'm not sure why. That's not very common to happen, but that has been happening to me. And a warm blanket generally helps while I'm at the infusion. I'm there for a total of about 5 hours, and then it takes time to get to the infusion center and get back. So it's like, all in all, a 6-hour kind of thing, really. I live about 25 minutes away. I've got a cat. My cat Rocky is on me trying to help me. Aren't you, Rocky? Huh? So now we're going to move on to talk about the other parts of copper. Well, I made it back from the copper infusion all in one piece. It's been a few days now, and I was hoping to have this up sooner, but I needed a little bit more recovery time than I've been needing in the past few years, I guess, for copper infusions. Pretty interesting story about how I found out that I have a copper deficiency and what it can mean for you in terms of small fiber neuropathy or body system-wide complications. Copper handles so many different things in the body, and it's not even really widely talked about very much. So anyway, I was at Mayo Clinic in 2016 and 2017, or somewhere around there, maybe 15 and 16. And I had read about heavy metals back then quite a bit. I had already delved into the research that much. And I had asked them to run a heavy metals test on me, which they did not do at first. And then they decided to test for 5, like lead and mercury, nickel. I forget what the other 2 were that they tested for, but I had asked them specifically to test for copper because I owned my own vineyard and winery operation that I had set up before, and sometimes copper sulfate is used in winemaking, and I was around copper sulfate quite a bit, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I have copper overload and toxicity. But when I had the 24-hour urine test and the serum test for copper, both came back as very low. And copper, as I said before, handles so many different things in the body. I'm going to throw up a chart from a study, and I'm just going to kind of read through it and talk about it a little bit and point you all in a direction maybe to find more information if that's something that you would like to do. I will say that the copper replacement infusions have helped me a great deal. I guess my body stopped absorbing copper naturally, and then I was supplementing, and that helped for a couple of years. Then that stopped working, so I had to move on to copper infusions. And copper causes problems with iron and many other things if it is not sufficient in your body. Really briefly, the chemistry side of me is coming out here a little bit, but copper is on the periodic table, and you can see it's right next to zinc there. It's right after nickel and right before zinc, and it's interesting to me that it's right next to zinc because in the body, copper and zinc are inversely related, and actually, if you think about them as being on a seesaw, you can kind of imagine what happens. So like if copper goes up, zinc goes down. If zinc goes up, copper goes down. It's far more complicated than that because other metals compete, like magnesium. You can throw aluminum in there, and they affect iron metabolism and oxygen transport and all kinds of different things. But it's interesting to think about where it is on the periodic table, because that can be relevant in a later discussion that we may have on this channel. So if we take a look here at this table from this article that was on PubMed in the Journal of Neurology from 2010 in June, the information is at the top there, so you can see it. We can see in this table 2 for this article about copper that we can see copper-dependent enzymes. And on the left, it's divided into oxidoreductases and things like that. We don't need to worry about that. The things that will be more relevant and more understandable are on the right side of the table. So if we just go down from the top, look, copper handles the metabolism of neurotransmitters. Boom! Noradrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, and dietary aminostyramine. I'm not sure about that one, but the other ones for sure. You know, it's like the catecholamines in your brain, and if you have chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalomyelitis or long COVID or meet the criteria for CFSME based on long COVID even alone, or have had it for many years like me, it's important to realize that you likely have a lower level of catecholamines in your brain to begin with. Then if you have low copper on top of it, you're not able to synthesize as many either. It's probably why, for some people, stimulants are helpful, such as Adderall or Ritalin. But anyway, it also handles the metabolism of amines like histamine. I always like the name of cadaverine. I don't know why. I had not seen that, honestly, until I looked at this chart many years ago, but I've come back to this chart so many different times. Connective tissue synthesis, cross-linking of collagen and elastin. So like connective tissue disease like presentations can occur, and really it's very varied. Copper deficiency myelopathy is something else we can look up later on. Oxidative phosphorylation, well, look at this, electron transport and mitochondrial respiratory chain. So it helps with that, and if you're deficient, guess what? You're not going to have enough energy. Antioxidant and free radical scavenging, conversion of superoxide radicals to hydrogen peroxide, iron transport, oxidation of Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus to enable serum transport on transferrin, copper storage and transport. Basically, all of this is saying that you're not going to be getting enough oxygen because your cells won't be able to transport it well enough if you are deficient in copper. Usually if you're deficient in copper, then eventually your ferritin will sink lower and your iron number will also come down eventually. So antioxidant and free radical scavenger, catecholamine synthesis, like the conversion of dopamine to noradrenaline or norepinephrine, peptide hormone maturation, amidation of alpha-terminal carboxylic acid group of glycine, melanin synthesis, conversion of tyrosine to dopa, transfer of methyl group from methyl tetrahydrofolate, that's everyone's favorite gene, the MTHFR methylation gene, to homocysteine to generate methionine for the methylation cycle and tetrahydrofolate for purine synthesis, and the regeneration of homocysteine in the methylation cycle. So as you can see, it doesn't do much. Haha, that's sarcasm. And this is not even touching really the surface of everything that it does in the body. It is an amazing metal that is required for so many different processes in our bodies, that it's unbelievable that many people are deficient and doctors aren't recognizing it, especially when it's my understanding that they learn about this in the first year of medical school. But then again, if you think back to the first year when you were in college, if you went to college, or just think about something that you learned many years ago, you may not necessarily remember it. So I'm going to give them a break on that one. And I did land with a doctor that is knowledgeable about this. Typically, a hematologist may manage this for you. So that might be something you would want to seek out. Interestingly, I have a unique type of hemoglobin. I believe that's what it was. I'll have to double check the genetic reports that I have, but we will come back to that as well. I just want to show you all this so you understand, what you could be missing in case you could increase your copper intake and feel much better. That's the whole goal of the channel, is to allow people to feel better and not suffer as much. That's my intention, if I'm setting one.